This conference will now be recorded.
And I'll share my screen. Let's share main monitor 1. What I was going to say is people who are in space planning, I'm going to put my money on it that I did say in the video you should not do the entire reflected ceiling plan. But I'm feeling lazy, and usually I'd pull a snarky Mrs. Green and I'd go in and I'd find the timestamp of the video and then I'd play it back right now. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, if anyone wants to prove me wrong and you got any points off for any reason this week, I'd give you full points and then some. But I didn't want you to do it. I'm pretty sure I broke it down in the middle and said, here's what my people do. They do the whole building because we've already built it and we do a really basic one. But you guys do the 2 spaces, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room, whatever it was said in her class. Now, some of you I know want to do a completed RCP, like the whole shebang, because it looks weird when you leave it partially completed. And so that was fine. But I know other people got probably felt the burn when they were kind of completing that plan and were like, how do I have so much work this week? I'm sorry that happened. What was another weird thing that I saw? Oh yeah, a lot of you didn't have ceiling heights. Now that one is in the written instructions for sure. I checked it when I was grading, but I don't remember. I was like, if you could find a point where I said, we'll add them in a later week or something for some weird reason, then sure, I could give you those points back too. And you just tell me the timestamp. But I think they were just omitted. I tried to turn on all the layers if it was just a layer problem and I missed it. I mean, that's happened sometimes. So say, check my file again, put that in the notes and I'll do that for you. But yee. All right. All right. So this week should feel good to everybody, because you already started the work or finished the work in Professor King's class that I'm going to show you the majority of the detailing. And I'm also going to show you some cheats on how to detail using SketchUp. So you've got a little bit of breadth of knowledge from her class, and the people who don't, I'm going to go into details tonight, which is why it's nice when I can teach it at the same time as her. But I know some of you just haven't even finished your details, even though they're due. So now is the time you get to have those aha moments or the relief when you're like, oh, it's that easy and I can stop doing too much, okay? So let's look at our homework for the details that we'll be doing, and then some organization onto layouts. Come down to session 12. Well, I think I labeled this video session 11. I'm trying to go back in time. Okay, so we're going to be making all of our sheets, the kind of final formatting of them tonight. So our LPC sheet, our reflected ceiling plan, floor plan, furniture plan, site plan. We don't have detailed drawing yet, so we're going to have to go back and add a sheet for that, or as many sheets as we need for the people who are in space planning. And then we have a lot of missing details because we have an unfilled in title block, and we have a bunch of viewports that might need to be added in certain situations. So let's see, start with details or start with pages? Let's start with details. So down at the bottom, you get to the very end, it says detail drawings. Not in space planning, complete 3 details. Space planning, complete as many details as Professor King specified. Any extra elevation sheets and details become A6, A7, A8, etc. Then below that, I've just added information that you might not have had from Professor King's class, or if you did, I know she sometimes gives you like these huge PDFs and you don't read it all because you're kind of like piecing through the pictures and stuff. So what I found useful when I was working in contract is to just have little vignettes of what I need like this. So scale of detail drawings is most often 3/4 inch or 1 1/2 inch. And you can imagine that's because if I take one little cabinet, upper cabinet, I don't want that at a 1/4 inch scale because it'll be teeny tiny. I'm zooming in to see it in detail. So our scale has to increase. If it's a molding that's even smaller than a cabinet, it needs to way increase. So that's where we get into that 1 1/2. Shop drawing paper size and scales We have the most common sizes of strap drawings are 11 by 17, that's a standard tabloid, and 24 by 36 Arch D. So that's what we have ours set up to be. Here are some good guidelines as for what scales to use on those. For 11 by 17, because we're not dealing with that. And for 24 by 36, it gives us a lot of space to work with at the expense of more expensive printing and less manageable paper, a lot more zooming when PDFs. A good elevation plan scale is 1/2. It's a little bit bigger than 3/8, and it works well on a 24 by 36 page. For sections, 1 1/2 works great, and you can fit the uppers and lowers together or talls on the same page. So there's what I want you to like really feel flexible on is you're organizing objects and text on a visual paper space. As long as your labeling matches the size you choose, it's totally up to you in a way. I mean, of course, use mine for this project, reference some of this, but if you're like, I can see it, maybe you have bad eyesight, maybe it's better for you if it's at 3/4 versus 1/4 because it's better that way. Okay, well then it makes more sense for you to do it that way. As long as it's labeled correctly, I'm fine with it. What do I mean by labeled correctly? Well, here's my final detail sheet. So I've added a sheet to my sheet set. And if I zoom in on a detail of my cabinet section, I see it says scale is 3/4 inch equals 1 foot. And if I double click on this viewport, you can see I have locked my scale and created this drawing at 3/4 inch equals 1 foot. As long as these things match and you've labeled it correctly, that's fine because all that matters is it's accurate information. Whereas this guy over here, I gotta double click out because you can't see it. I've hidden my viewport lines. But this guy over here, if I double click, he's a mantle section. It's kind of like a molding. It's running across the top of my fireplace, my mantle. So if I double click in here, it says 1 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. And that's what the label says, 1 1/2 equals 1 foot. So accuracy is the key. Now, stairs are ginormous. There's no way that I can have that be 3/4 inch. Can I? Did I fit it all on here? Hey, that's pretty good. So, I mean, it's better that I have it be something similar to this than try to have everything deviate from itself. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen momentarily because I want to I might grab your file actually, Michelle. We'll see. Just to see. Michelle, for your homework file, did you keep all the junk to the side that did you have a stair or did any of you have
I don't have any
stairs?
stairs. I don't have any stairs.
Trying to think about how long ago, or let's go back. I'm going to go and
But
see.
like everything's in my file, I think.
Okay, well, let's open up your file because I want to see if it had any extra dimensioning. Are there any question? Oh, Kenzie King. Do the space finding students need an overall reflected ceiling plan? No, Mackenzie, maybe I answered that already when you entered into the class and you heard my spiel. So no, you do not. And I believe I said that in the video, like I broke it down. It could have been confusing because I showed the one for the students who aren't in space planning and said this is for them. And then I talked about the typed instructions. If you find it anywhere that you thought you did, then let me know where, because I'm sorry for misleading you. But I thought, especially this year, I think I remember saying every year, people think this and they spend too much time. I gotta grab Michelle's file. So scroll way over. I know you can't see anything because we're in homework and we don't share homework. In fact, I'm going to pause the recording. Pause
This conference will now be recorded.
and record. All right, so we've got Michelle's stuff up. Here's the box of those symbols that she brought in. And here's some text, bathroom. Just trying to think about in that original box what was over here. There were no stairs or anything. Maybe I just should. Okay, this. So these little
Wait a
guys.
second. There were stairs, but you told us we could delete them. Or no, there was a deck, I think. I think it was like a deck that was there.
Okay. So
It was
we
for the
could
people.
we could go back and look at it and see what it was. If it was stairs, let me know while I'm talking tonight, because then we can just be like, oh, everyone go back. You could grab the stairs if you want to use them. But this stuff in here, okay? So these are the labels that we're going to use on our plans eventually to signify our elevations. I just want to point out they're here, and then also that I've created this text model for everybody to use, which is really kind of me, in case you wondered. So when I go down in here to my drawing, you can see that's a nice little reference guide for you to base your text off of, copy it over, and then you can physically scale it up if you need to, depending on the size of the thing that you're detailing out, but that's for you to use. Let's go back into here and look at all of these guys. So thinking about our details without running out of time and talking about our sheets. I think the scariest thing is that you're not contractors, although you have taken drafting and construction and you have a lot of these images in your book of like a section going through a cabinet like this. And maybe the scariness is labeling things properly, but if you've ever lived in a house really, and you could open up a cabinet and like knock on wood and look at it, there's not much to a cabinet. So when I cut through my cabinet guy here, all I really got is a series of boards, just like a box, right, that we've created. So we have some type of wood here, and then the front of our door that connects probably via hinge on the other side we can't see, or the cutout side. It has a handle on the front. If I want to have shelves, I could have just another piece of wood that falls between the back piece of wood that adjoins to the top, right? So there's not much more than that. There's nothing hidden behind that. They take wood together, they put it together with screws, and then there's special things like number 4. Number 4 is a pinhole for shelf adjustability. That's something that's really nice to have to give your client, and is oftentimes forgotten by students, I'd say, because they're just busy just drawing the cabinet and getting used to getting little things like the backer boards in that connect it to the drywall piece. And so they forget about the nice usability functions of the cabinet. So I simply add 2 holes that says to me, that's where the pins go in. You don't need to kill yourself. You don't need to Google how far apart should pinholes be. And I feel like you get wrapped up in details and scared of stuff. Just put them in there and then just say, like, we want to know about the function. The contractor is going to figure out how to put it together. Now, the thickness of the wood, that might be specified by the brand of cabinet that you're using. So if this was a craft made, you could look at the specification and it says it's 3/4 inch thick boards that I'm using. And then back here we have, let's see, our number 1. These are our wood blockers. That's what's going behind my drywall or plaster in order to help give added hold to these cabinets. Now, would you know about these things without referencing them from a book? No. Are you cheating because you copy it straight out of a book? No. So find a book, copy all of this stuff, draw it, right, based off of your thing. Go to a nice website that already has this for you, right? Maybe you could get this block, but it's not labeled accurately. Your job is to label. You are the designer. You specify materials and finishes. Your job is not to build yet. So it is that simple. You add the leader lines, the numbers, and this information. A lot of this information comes with the object if it's from a book. And I mean, I'm showing some of it tonight. I can like pause here while I'm talking and you can take it all in for a minute and duplicate some of it. But then the things you're changing are Doug Mockett contemporary pull do. So in here, you might say, I hate that pull. It's way too tall. I have a little knob. So you put little knob 54. And then you say, I have a wood toe kick. Do you have a wood toe kick? Or do you have a rubber toe kick? Or do you have a cool aluminum toe kick? Because you're fancy like that. Then you have a painted wood sleeper. Some of these things have to do with, yes, we pull the knowledge from the book, and some of them we change. So don't get concerned about building. Get concerned about materials and finishes. Copy everything else. That's not cheating. There's only so many ways that a cabinet goes together. Now, if you copy it and you have 4 drawers in here instead of 1 shelf, That's not good. Okay, so you have to have it be representative of the object that you're cutting through in the location you're cutting through. So what that means is, if this is my building section 1A5, it has to match up with the labels on my plan. And this might be a version, let me see if I have them even in this version. Okay, yep, I do. So here's 1A5. So that signifies to me this cabinet and this run of cabinets, I'm cutting through my section so that I can see into it right in here. I can see through the bottom and I can see through the top. Okay, so then if I come back to here and I say, what does that look like when I look at this section? Well, that section of cabinet should be the one with the shelf. Now, if you were in space planning and you had the little number here and you had like numbered all the different shelves and things, or in elevation, you're showing the front of that to have drawers, then you would have to come into your detail here and simply draw some drawers, and or find one that already had drawers and make sure it aligns with what you're doing. So being sure it matches, simply put. All right, so there is a cabinet. Now, how can SketchUp help us with these things? Pretty awesomely, actually. So I'm gonna undo and go back. All I did was I went into the Google warehouse, this guy up here, and I grabbed a craft-made cabinetry house. So I knew it was good product developed by a company and not some junk that Timothy down the road made when he was eating carrots, okay? So if I came in here and I just pulled one of these off to the side because I wanted an upper cabinet and a base cabinet, then I just picked this set over here. They had originally been right here. I copied them and pulled them to the side, and it just didn't take its handle with it. I could say, oh yeah, that looks like my wine storage, or who knows, maybe it's a trash can one. But I just want to get a good base to even know that what the information I had in AutoCAD, maybe I don't even get how the top cabinet goes together. Then what I could do is go into my tools and come down to section plane. And then it's going to say, I already made one section, but it says section plane, name section 2, symbol 2. We don't really care about those things because we're not going to use the labels. We're not using SketchUp to make our sheets. So we can just say place. And after we say place, we're going to come to our cabinet. We want to see the red that we're seeing here. And then it's going to go like this. Then what I can do is grab this and move it. So I grabbed it by clicking on it, left click, and I can start to move it. Ooh, guys, how fancy is this? Appreciate, please. All right, so I just moved it, and by moving it, I can now see inside my cabinet, and because it's made by an awesome company, I see how this cabinet's made. And lucky day for us, this is a cabinet of multiple drawers that are connected. So it's like you pull this one face out and it has all of this inside of it, kind of maybe like we could say spice cabinet. So I've got that and the information on how this top cabinet goes together. So I can move all of this guy to the side. Got to get out of our section. He's just his own thing. So like I can click on this still. I could click over here and be back over here. Maybe we say we're done with this. So I'm going to come in. It's probably going to delete it when I delete this. Oh, perfect. I thought it was a component. So we're going to delete that. Now all we have is this. I'm going to do camera, standard view. What would this be? Front? Or so it'll be right. Camera, standard view, right. Haha. And we're going to do camera, parallel projection. And we're going to come in here, and we don't really need Tiffany over here. If we can get rid of her. We want to limit it down as much as we can and zoom in properly. And then we're going to do File, Export, 2D Graphic, and CAD Drawing. And I'm going to do it to my desktop because that's where all my things live here. We should give it a name. We'll say section cab. Okay. So I can minimize some of this stuff. So I can find section cab. Continue opening my drawing. Beautiful. So if you're like really don't know anywhere to start, then go ahead and utilize SketchUp as a tool for getting good detail like this. And imagine like it's different than going to a website where they give you this thing and it's been set. Like who knows like what individual has ever done that exact section from that exact cabinet. So it's like if you're worried about copying something, then pick any model. Pick a model that looks closer to the exact thing that you want from the cabinetry that they have in the warehouse and section through it and use it. Maybe you could even lie to me and tell me these are drawers, right? Because they basically are drawers if I continued the gap in here so that it was like this section was above and it doesn't connect right here. I could believe that that's a drawer that's floating above another drawer and call this drawers, and it will be better than anything you could have come up on your own in your own free time trying to fill in this information for a section drawing. And then you just label it, and maybe it's craft made door pull number 5. This is a rubber toe kick in a gray, and so on and so forth. So it should be really freeing to use these tools. I'm going to go back to this. The same thing would apply to if I looked up certain types of molding. So I could get a detail of a molding from the side going into my warehouse. If we go into our Google warehouse, and I just want to say, you know, crown molding. Or you could use the ones you have. You know, you're copying your model now. You modeled it out and you picked this one and you brought it in. You could take a picture of it from the side, export your 2D graphic, and once you get your 2D graphic of it comes in like this, then it's this is probably harder, I think, than cabinetry for you to intuit exactly what's going on here. And all I did was Google sometime, it must have been like 2 years ago, and Google and then say, yes, that's reasonable, and I can base off of my Google search how the molding goes together on the inside to give a little bit more detail, because I'm wanting them to build this specific model that's in SketchUp, but it's like, well, how do you actually make that if you can't buy it at a store? So if I come in here and I say section of crown molding, and some of them are just like, I'll show you what I mean, or let's do section of, what did I call that? I was calling it mantle, because the mantle is kind of like crown molding but attached on all edges, so it's a little bit different. I think it'll help you think about how you use a molding. Got enough windows for one lifetime going on. Section for crown molding. We'll see. It's been a while, but I really did Google it before. So images. So here's where I'm saying, like, sure, you could show this, and that's if you can buy this in the piece. But when I go to put it together in order to make a mantle, there might be multiple pieces that are going together, where I take that beautiful molding part and I attach it to a board using some type of thumbnail in here, and then I glue my hard, rigid mantle top, or maybe I put down some Corian or whatever's going to be the top piece of it over that piece, but it's connected at an angle using studs. So if I want to do that and show that to my contractor for my fireplace mantle, then I say, here's my decorative piece. It's a curve. And then I could say, here's my bull nose edge molding. And I have a smaller bull nose edge molding. This is if I'm really making the decorative stuff from scratch. So I just show them, and then 2 boards for support. And whatever the top is going to be is number 1. And then there's probably emptiness in here, which honestly could be hatched to be more clear. And then I have another piece of wood that attaches at the bottom. So Googling things to get a good visual of a real piece of wood or wood connecting. The one I originally saw a long time ago was like a photograph with labeled parts. There's tons of resources like that if you Google well. Then taking the initial things for the hard stuff, like I wanted a good word for thick nailer. So that's the stuff that goes at the back in here, and like ledger board. I couldn't tell you what that is, the stuff that attaches to the wall, but I certainly know what my, full round moldings are and my bull nose moldings and da 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 da. So if I could get the decorative stuff down, I just use this for the constructive stuff in the back. Anything I Google, I copy it and I draw it. Then I label it. So that's how to make our details. My class has to make 3. They don't have to make these 3. So if you could think of something else, all that I do ask is you at least have one cabinetry section to prove you tried the Google SketchUp thing. That's my class. If you've already done one from scratch or copying it from a website, other people, you don't have to do that. I'd imagine we all have a cabinetry one maybe. If not, then let me say this so that we all try the Google thing. I'm going to close out of extra stuff. Let's say in our homework, and remember my recommendation to you was you always have one extravagant, awesome thing, and you always have simple things. So if you have 5 details drawn, I would say you want to have 2 pretty nice ones and 3 okay ones. So we'll say not in space planning, complete the 3 details, and I'm going to say, and include an unlabeled export of a SketchUp section, which means you just bring it in like I just did into your drawing and just put it in a box so that I know that you tried it, okay? And you're just doing whatever you did then for Cheryl's class. Include it and then include this extra thing. For my class, I'm going to say you can have, oh wait, actually it'd be complete 3 details. This goes with you guys. Cut. Paste. It says complete many details of then. For mine, complete 3 details. 1 must be a cabinet section. Okay. Then space planning, complete as many details and include an unlabeled excerpt of a section cabinet from SketchUp. I'm late on. Okay. Why doesn't it want me to do that? There we go, excerpt. All right, so that clarifies that. We'll save that. Save. All right, so sheets. And then if I have time, I'm going to go back and talk even more about detail drawings and how to match up text and notes, because I showed this quickly, but some of you might still be unclear on how to do this well for both classes, because I don't know, did Professor King talk about those kind of labels at all? No? Okay. So Angie said, will you be posting these drawings in our class folder? If you mean these drawings, no. So this one is the one that you would do as you export it, and then you would take pieces. Things you'd have to add that won't come in with the extra is a wall. So the wall is just drawn behind the cabinets, which should be in alignment with each other. And the wall from the students not in space planning, you could label it whatever you want because you don't know, but it's actually plaster. So if you want to label it plaster, you could. Number 3, I said plaster on wood studs already, which is nice. So you can all see what that looks like. You could say drywall. You could say a number of finishes for that. But on drywall or gypsum board and plaster would be the most commonly used. So you'd add a thickness for that. That thickness could be a lot of things. There's a lot of variance in gypsum board, but don't get caught up in what it is. Just kind of give me an idea of a thickness that's holding something together. And then there's always at the top of, imagine a cabinet for an upper cabinet because it's pulling down towards, we have some type of backered boards of a thickness, either like a 2x4 or maybe something a little more substantial drawn at the top and having its longer side going down and its shorter end up here at the top. Those would be the things that are missing. Everything else would kind of come in and be labeled appropriately. So that's when I did that zoom in here if you wanted to see what they were, and then kind of look at it out here, kind of hover here. But then for my class, I kind of want you to come up with something that you would want to detail. You don't have a lot going on in the house, so you can kind of fake it till you make it. You could pick anything that you can find online. If you wanted to do a custom chair, you could do it for all I care, but you're just trying the detailing process. You want to do something really simple like a 3-inch base molding that's just a rectangle, I don't care, that's fine, because you're practicing labeling, sizing, and getting things into the right paper format, whereas the other class is practicing the detailing that goes out into matching their design. All right, so let's go back to our homework. We've figured out our detail drawings. We're going to go back to the top. We have to do corrections to our LCP sheet. It says make sure the scale is 1/2, make sure the label is 3/8 inch, and then make sure alignments are on point, look well organized, and fill in all info for the sheet in the bottom right. And honestly, I think that this I'm not as concerned about anymore. I'm just going to say include label. Doesn't have to be 3-inch anymore. Include label. But it does need to be in a separate viewport. Accomplish with separate viewport, which we'll see. And then make sure alignment's on point and fill in the information. Okay, so our LPC plan. I have this here. Let's look at Michelle's drawing because that'll answer my question. So we've made so far site plan, building section, reflected ceiling plan, and floor plan. So for this week, and I think it's because I used to have more work of you when we did the power and communication, and then I changed it since I was gone. We need to add a LPC plan down here to go with these sheets. So if I come into, actually I can do it with Michelle's drawing because mine would just confuse you. So if I do an addition here, I always want to do that. That's not good. So if I want to take something she has with a title block. Let's see, Michelle. Do any of yours have a title block, or is it just turned off maybe?
I don't.
Title block. There you go. They were turned off.
Yeah.
In the layers. I was like, I know you did it right. All right, so I'm going to take one with the title block, which they all have title block. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to do from template, move or copy. Move or copy. Let's do sure reflected ceiling plan and create copy. Okay. So I now should have duplicates of my copy. And here, duplicated the floor plan. I want to try that one more time. Move or copy. And that says before layout. Oh, I see what it did. So this is signifying where it's going to put the copy. It put it before the word reflected ceiling plan, but the copy is created off the tab that you're clicking. So if I create a copy now, it's going to copy reflected ceiling plan. And if I clicked on before floor plan, it would put it right in between those. So if I put this and create a copy and say, okay, see how it put it right in between those, and it's my reflected ceiling plan. So we've got some copies. We're going to need them both, actually. I'm going to change the text on this copy of a reflected ceiling plan to be LPC plan. Could be electrical, We talked about that in the past. And now I can modify it to include those areas. Now, it's not of everything, it's of the grouped sets that we've created and the like ones we wanted to focus on. So if I go back into my drawing and we open up those plans, we're going to have two sets. So for my people who are in space planning, you're going to have a page where you have the area like the kitchen and the dining area, and then you should have one where you have your bathroom and your master bedroom area. So two sets, because that's what was asked by Professor King, correct? For her class? Okay. So if I'm looking at my bedroom and bathroom area, that means if I'm Michelle, then she has that up here, and we've got to get it kind of scaled down, right? Our binding box needs to only include the stuff that she has for her bedroom and bathroom. So we're going to bring it in a little bit like this, but our scale is actually kitchen and bath scale, so it needs to be 1/2. So if I double click in here and I say, well, really this should be 1/2, so it's going to be bigger, I'm going to have to make it. Going to have to unlock it because that was something she had set for her previous drawing. Come in and scroll down to 1/2. Ooh, we gained some space. Now it'll take up a nice portion of the screen. And then I could cut it here and all the way to the wall so it's nice and clean. She's gonna go back and hatch these interior walls, or maybe, do you think that you've done that yet, Michelle, and the layer's just off?
I think I did that yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. So eventually we're going to have it with the hatch on, but for now we just need the preview to be correct. So here's her preview. She's got everything right in here. And if we printed it, it would all be black because that would be our settings for the print. But right now it just looks gray, so we're doing okay. So we've got this on. Let me make sure. I'm in your reflected ceiling. This is the one I want. No one ever says anything to me. It looks pretty at that size. 1/2. There. Okay. Ooh, that looks so much prettier. Okay, so we get this on our sheet, and then we have to fill in all of our information here, and we have to give ourselves a label. So a completed sheet we're seeing is going to have this. Oh, I just let it be over here to the side. That's nice. So no label, I guess. Man, I've way been lightened up as a teacher. All right, so we cut it off like this. We have to have our legend to go with it, and then we have to fill out our information. So we have boxes and areas, and we can decide how to fill them. Sometimes, did you guys create like any logo for this project? Sometimes students just create a logo, or they have something they want to represent. You can put an image in here. You could put a logo in here. You could have this be like the big project name. I've seen it done multiple ways. I'm mostly concerned about this information being the same, and the project name being the same. So if I go into Michelle's and we come in here, it's making sure that the date is correct. The date is going to be the date it's due. So I'm not so concerned that we set this for the date, and by due I mean like final project due, because you're going to print these eventually. When you turn them in, you set it as the date it's due. I'm more concerned about the scale being right for this submission, this first submission. So we said that's 1/2 inch scale. Now, I'm going to test it in this version of CAD where it says as noted. We're going to see if it's going to let us type in what we want to. This works 50% of the time, and then sometimes we have to change it manually by deleting these sections out. So our scale is 1/2 an inch equals 1 foot 0. Okay, that's what I thought. Double text. Okay, so here is my every year. Every year we find out there's like a duplicate box. So I'm trying to figure out the workaround so I can just say do this for every sheet. So if I hit undo and go back before I even typed anything in the text, I think there's always a duplicate. So step 1 is delete the duplicate sheet. In fact, I'm going to make a little Word document for myself to the side so I can post it underneath our notes. Word doc. You won't see it. It's on my other screen. All right, so and that's because when we copy the sheet, it's duplicating the title block, and there's nothing we can do about that, but the copying of the sheet saves the formatting that we need. So number 1, delete duplicate title block. Okay, so then once you delete the duplicate title block, you can come into the as noted, and you should be able to type your 1/2. Oh my gosh, guys, I can't even right now with this. One. That is the strangest. It's like there's 2 duplicates. Is this Michelle's? Yeah, it is. Can somebody, I bet some of you have it open. Can you check and see, can you delete off? And do you have to delete twice, like 2 versions of it for each sheet? 1/2 an inch equals 1 foot, 0 inches. I know another workaround for this, but I like it when it works out. Okay, and then for our project value, we're going to say whatever the name of the sheet is. So here I put lighting, mechanical, master bedroom, and bathroom. So if I came in here to Michelle's, I could say LPC master bedroom. I don't want it there. So we got to go into the right value by clicking on it, and it's project date. This one. There we go. Master bedroom. Sorry, I'm botching my typing. Sticking. Bathroom. Okay. And then here is where you've got to scale it down. So it's just like, I believe it's like other text where you can scale it. I'm about ready to do my default thing. Hold on. Text options. The height of it, let's say 3/16. For that section. Say okay, bigger. Let me see in here. How small can I go? Let's go 1/32 maybe. So click on the thing, click on text. 132. Too small. I love this. All right, and let's check. So I'm just checking my scaling. Maybe 3/32 or 1/8. 1/8 was too big. We'll try 3/32. Text options. 3/32. That's better, but it doesn't wrap. All right, we're gonna have to do it my junky way. I hate these templates. Okay, so Here's my sneakier way. I'm gonna undo until we can't undo no more. The text should all be possibly separate from our value. And if not, hold on, I'm gonna stop recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Instead of having the values say whatever, we still have to delete out the duplicates. So I'm going to pick a whole new one just to see if there's 2 duplicates every time. So if I delete 1, delete 2, delete 3, I'm going to undo, undo, undo. So there are 3 every time. So delete until you get down to 1 layer. I know that seems weird, but it has to do with the copying to keep the title block. So once you're down to 1 layer, you're going to double click and you're going to go through the fields and we're just going to remove them. Okay, so if we come into this value here, we're going to backspace it because they don't have any text wrapping and we need more information than what we can fit into the thing without making it unreadable because you can't wrap down beneath itself. So we'll get rid of the values in here. You could keep some of them. Like I would have been fine to keep the scale and the date in reality, but I'm just going to show you how to like fill it without keeping any of them. So if we keep going through and we delete any other text that we have in here, we'll have a nice blank template. Let's see, 0 is going to be my sheet set, and we can change that once we know the numbering of our sheets. And scale is fine to be empty. Let's scroll up to the top. Okay, so we're in better shape now. Value for a project. Okay, so the project one was the one that was give us the most trouble. You can always at any time use a text tool in this field. So our text tool works in both Paperspace and ModelSpace. We might create our own layer for it, or we could put it on the text as long as it's consistently on, or we could have it on the title block layer because that's where we're going to be including it. If I come into it then and I'm on my title block layer and I have my text, I can get in here and then that's where I could say my LPC. And it's nice because it's in the same text as our file is, master bedroom and master bath. And then I can change the size of this to be whatever I want, and we said 3. Sorry, guys. One of those nights. Master bathroom. Okay. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to scale it. Or I can change the text size, but I just don't want to lose my text this time. What did we say? Ooh, this brings up a good thing. See how I'm hovering? And maybe if I zoom in, you can see it a little bit better. See the little annotative guy? Let's make sure that it's not that and that we're using notes. Will you be posting the drawings? So duplicate. I'm sorry this is like in real time figuring it out, but duplicate the title block twice. Delete, I'm filling in your Word document, all text except date and scale. Unless you want all your fonts to match, because it would be different if you kept that. So that's kind of up to you. I'll say or match fonts. I'm okay with both if you want to be lazy and just keep the bottom 2. And then use non-annotative text to fill. And then I'm going to say dash, you can scale it or change font size. Okay. So if I came in here and I said 3/30 seconds, enter, that makes pretty nice size. That kind of fits for me, but this is still my annotative. I'm going to see what the difference is going to be between annotative. So if this is annotative, I'm saying it's kind of scary. I'm going to move him over or up here for now. If I come back in, so we've got to annotate, notes, annotative, we really just want notes. If I try my notes and then I go to home and text, and I come in here and I try the same thing with the notes, it's going to start smaller, which is kind of nice, but I'm going to show you the scale up. So LPC, master, bedroom, and master, bathroom. Let's pull it to the side so it all fits and fix my spelling. Oh, but it was sneaky because it's notes on top of paper. So this is the one where we could scale it. I'm just going to make sure when I go to print it. Down. And you could scale by like pulling it like that, or you can always scale if you do scale and you do a decimal 0.5. It keeps going half, 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 and scale it down. Your choice, like an image. Scale it up. Move it. You're like, I think I'm liking that annotative text if it works at the 3/32 size. So this is saying it's 3/16. And this one is at 1/8 annotative. Okay. I like that. Move. We're going to see if I can give you one common size to type if it's non-annotative to set it to 1/16. All right. So let's see. So annotative looks good at about 1/8. Non-annotative notes looks at 1/16. If I try to use it again, now that I'm in notes, so if I'm just going to prove to you I'm in non-annotative notes, notes, home, text. And if I try to do it again and I say hello, for instance, and I select the size of my text and I say 1/16, enter. Let's see what size it goes. Just disappears. Yeah, so that's right, it is 1/16 inch. Okay, so I'll put that in your thing. You can use non-annotative text to fill, and we'll say at 1/16 inch height. I think it's okay to use the other one because it didn't disappear when I moved it. You could use annotative, so remember that's if you go into annotate and you see it says notes annotative, and that's at 1/8 inch. So, or annotative at 1/8 inch. Okay. And you can, once you have something like this, you're like, gosh, lady, you're not even going to finish teaching this class tonight with all these changes. So once we have one page set up and we get our date in here, and you could use this then is what I'm saying, you can copy it down and you can copy it down and you have the font as you want it, and you can change the text where you need it to be down in here. So if we say the date is what our final date is, so I don't know what it is. So for now I'll do 2/119, and I don't care about it changing much. It is kind of nice to have the same font when you look at it. And then the scale though, we know is 1/2 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. And the sheet we'll get to at the end of class. But once we get that information right, we can fill out our project name and address. And so usually that's where we just put boathouse in here. And this is just scalable text. What did I use in my original file? 1/4 inch text. Let's see if we try to do that with Michelle's. You could even like take this again, copy it up, and that's where if she just put in the words backspace and said boathouse, I do like it to be all capitals so that it takes up the right amount of space, and she selects it. She can make it bigger by typing it up here, or safely this one, because it's just one word, scaling it bigger. So there she has boathouse. Move. You're like, that's boathouse. Guys, it's such a weird night. It feels like boat isn't spelled right. All right, and then if we come up to firm name and address, that's where you can put just your name. You don't have to put your address, but you could put your first and last name. Sometimes people like to put a fake firm. So it's like, I'm Angela Tiffin and I work at G&G Design. And you're fine to make up that kind of fictitious stuff, but you could just put your first and last name. You don't need to include your address. So in that case, I'd use the smaller font and copy it up and just put it right underneath here. And I could say Allison Green, and you could say a design team if you wanted to, but you don't have to. So if you like it, you can just leave it. You can make it a little bit bigger if you want it to, but I think it's fine as long as the project name is bigger, because project name, like if your client gets these papers, they either want it to be their name or the name of the project that's recognizable to them, like their main address, so that it seems fancy. These are the papers for them. Revisions and issues. So what these are is if you handed this sheet and you're like, this is my final drawing, and you handed it to your contractor and you're like, this is my design idea for the lighting, how about you do it? Then if he made changes to it, he would say number 1, and then he would say his name and the date that he made revisions, and he might put red pen all over this thing and then put that revision over here. The general notes is just exactly what it is, but usually we use our general notes on the screen so that they match up with the individual drawings. That's like extra notes, which I could show you on some of the later detail sheets tonight. So we've got this information laid out. This one should be really the LPC plan, but we were just trying our duplicate copies. But all you need to know is text. We can use the sizes. I'm going to post this like little extra notes I'm taking that you can't see off the screen for you underneath your homework. Change it. We're going to delete it out, put in our own, scale it if we need to, and then fill in the rest. So once you've got one of these done, you could control copy all the sections that you want to at once. And you could copy it like this. Then when you go into the next plan, like the reflected ceiling plan, we're still going to have to go and we're going to have to delete out the extras. 1 delete, 2 delete. That leaves me with the final copy. I double click into here and I backspace all of my values. So if I came down here and I wanted to get rid of these, I could backspace and come down here, backspace, and come in here and backspace. And you're like, this tedious. It's only tedious because we had to set up all of our sheets first because it's a skill that I needed you to know so that you could print for Professor King's class. It's not the greatest order, I know that, but it's the best way for everything else that we have to do in the class. So we get most of those things done, and then we can paste those things into place. Bam. So then we have to change it to match up. So this is my reflected ceiling, but I've got this field where I can backspace and say reflected ceiling plan, the date, and the scale. Now our scale has to change. Don't forget this because you did a copy and paste. So I'm going to move it over a little bit so I can see it better. And this one is an 1/8 of an inch most likely, or a 1/4 of an inch. It's probably a 1/4 because it's not the outdoor one. So 1/4 of an inch. And you'll note that I've already got those notes up for you. So when we move on to the reflected ceiling plan, it says it's at 1/4 of an inch and we need to label it. People who are in space planning, oh, this is, so if you're in space planning and you're only going to show the plans like what I'm showing for my lighting, power, and communication, then you should have 2 reflected ceiling plans to go with those 2 sheets. So like we would have 1 reflected ceiling plan that goes with this lighting, power, and communication plan. Does that make sense to the people who are in space planning? If you're not going to show us your whole reflected ceiling plan, you're going to end up with 4 sheets. 2 reflected ceiling plans that show master bedroom, master bath on one, kitchen and dining on another, and then an LPC plan that shows those 2 areas. So that's 4 sheets altogether. That makes sense. If we go back to my house, you won't see that because I only require the people in mind to have like this much of a reflected ceiling plan. So if you're going to do the full sheet, you'll have a full one like this. If you're only going to do the required sections, you're going to end up having a reflected ceiling plan that kind of looks like this, except without the dashed lines, and a reflected ceiling plan that looks like this because you're sectioning it out. No one's responding to me in the comments, so I'll assume that you get the difference between the 2 classes. And I will go back to here. So for this lighting, power, and communication plan, we could have all of our values filled in over here. That's really simple to do. We said we're not going to finalize the date until the date it's due, so you can have whatever date you want in here. It's mostly changing scale. The name of the project down here matches with the space, so lighting, power, and communication, master bedroom, bath, and this one, reflected ceiling plan. And the project name should be Boathouse, or if you want to name it after your author, people who are in space planning, you could say the exact location of it, Boathouse, and whatever any other information about the project. If you're making it an island-themed boathouse, something that's going to be meaningful to that client. And then your name and first and last, and maybe a design firm if you want it to be. We're just leaving this section empty. We said that's for revisions and general notes, which we don't do. All right, so we've got an LPC plan 1. We have to have 2 of them. So this is where I said I made this random duplication of the floor plan. So I can come in here and double click and say LPC plan, and this can be kitchen, dining, or living, depending on what you did. I know some of you did 2 different areas. If it doesn't like it, I could do a dash, I think. And then this one, I could make more specific by double clicking on it and say LPC plan dash master bed, master bath. All right. So if I come into this one, I know I have to come down into this area of her plan. So I'm going to make my box a little bit smaller. I'm going to unlock this if it's not already unlocked in the lower right-hand corner. I'm going to change the scale to be 1/2 because kitchen and bath is at 1/2, and it's easier to read. And because we have this huge piece of paper, so really we could even do it bigger, but we're not because standard is 1/2. I'm going to come inside my box and pan until I've got the necessary areas and crop them at the walls, trying to include the whole wall if I can. So like if this cuts off, don't cut it off in between the window, kind of bring it down to the real edge of the wall so it's cleaner cut, or just a little off. I'd rather see more than not enough. So this would be hers. And then like if you had a dining area with furniture in here, great. Some of my people, you just have a kitchen and that's fine. In my class only. In space planning, it should be 2, but I know some of you I okay to just have this area, in which case Michelle could just crop it a little bit tighter. I might include this because you get the end of the pipe wall in there. It just gives you a better idea of space. So if you had this area in here, this would be enough information. Now, for these plans specifically, the LPC plans, you have to do some color changes that are within the viewports only. So we can change colors as we see them in the viewport. And the main one that we need to make sure is that the furniture is for sure turning up gray. So I'm going to do a print preview on hers. It says, nope, continue. And we're going to do drawing to PDF and preview. And Michelle might be real lucky that hers is already pretty much set up with the exception of the walls not being black. Okay, so Michelle's is good because these lines are all black, the switching lines and the lighting fixtures, but all of her kitchen pieces are showing up gray. And when we show a lighting, power, and communication plan, that helps us to better read it so we're not distracted by the furniture underneath. So she's lucky that the only thing she'd need to change is the readability of the walls to be black for this portion now. So if we say, we double click in here and we look at these guys, since they're showing up at black, let's see. I wish it would tell me by layer. If it's 0, 0, 0, object color, more colors. Okay. We'll try it. Let me try changing this one. Okay, I think we can do 0, 0, 0. It used to be if you would click 0, 0, 0 in CAD, sometimes it would show up as white. So I'm going to give it a try, changing her walls. So I'm going to double click out of the viewport. I changed that back. I was just testing her colors, trying to see if this was anything special. Underneath your layer properties, when you make the layer properties big, we can see these things at the top: VP transparency, VP line type, VP color. So we have color, which means in my model space, and then I have viewport color, which means it's not going to affect it anywhere but when I print it. So I want to change the hatch or whatever layer that is to be a black, like a 0, 0, 0, or let's see, she has certain things being white. If we go into her dimensions, lighting, electrical, she has it being white. That's where I'm wondering when we go to print what it's going to look like, but I printed black, so it's almost different. If we come in here, what layer is this, Michelle? Hatch walls. Okay, you have to be out of this space. You can't be double clicked in because you're in your model. So we want to be outside of this and say our viewport, so we could have it active like this. And in our layer properties with that active, I'm going to say that my hatch walls needs to change under viewport color to be 250. Let's say okay. And close. And then I'm going to do a print test again. No, continue to plot. Drawing to PDF. Preview. Oh, it's going to be the death of me. I don't think I can be clicked in here. Let me try it this way. I'm so scared to do it. We'll try. All right, so if I'm clicked in here, and I do viewport color. Okay, white, yep. Hatch walls. Okay. It's not gonna kill me. And then I close it. There we go. So now let's look at her model. So here it's back. So I guess we have to be double clicked in. Just worried it would change it in here. And it'll come out. Yay! All right, so she's all good down in here. So if we go back to our LPC kitchen dining, we want to change that in here. And honestly, we want eventually our hatch to be black. So we're going to go back through because like we do a final cleanup for the whole class. And we have one last color change of some items. But it's only because when we print, you can print it in black and white. So for instance, if I was in here and it didn't change this, I had been telling you, you can control it with your layers like I just did and have it be black always, or you can control it with your print. And when you don't have to worry about color changes like gray and black, you just go in and you do continue to plot and you change it to be monochrome where everything prints black and white. You go to PDF and you do preview and it'll change it for you. But when you do that, if you have any outstanding hatch, it might feel a little warbly from far away, but up close it's fine. And really, that's just like the zooming of it. It would print fine. It's just your previewing of it. So if it's solid, it was okay. But they're the same things. It's just it depends on how you want to control things. So it's like if I want it to always be black, so it's a quick print, I could do that. In the case of the LPC, I want my cabinet lines to be black all the time in every other drawing, but I want them to be gray in here. So at this point, what that means is I could really change in her model space the kitchen cabinets under their real layer to be black, but then have it so that in this place under their viewport, you guys are going to hate me, under their viewport, they're going to be gray. So what is this layer called? Kitchen cabinets and layer properties. Go to K. Okay, where are you? Kitchen cabinets. And under here, if we say only in this instance do we want it to be some shade of gray, then we say okay and close. Then it's gray in here, but now we fixed it so that it's always black in every other drawing. So she knows at the end of the day she's going to have to print it. Now, it doesn't have to be black and you don't have to make all those changes. All that really matters is in the LPC, it has to be gray. And otherwise, the rest of your plan should be able to control black and white by being black and white in the print menu. It's a lot of information. All right, so we have two new plans, LPC, LPC. Let's go back to this. So LPC sheets. Let me say this here. So it should be 2 LPC sheets total. And it can be, you know, that kitchen, living and dining. And bedroom plus bathroom. Okay. That's a little more clear. Corrections to RCP, it says people who are not in space planning show a full plan. People who are in space planning show at 1/8 scale. Oh, I'm going to backspace that. Show at 1/2 scale and include 2 areas or 2 groupings, we should say. Make sure everything's aligned and fill in all the info for the bottom of the bottom right. Floor plan, counter lines equals dash and LTS. So we've already corrected this in the previous week. If you're still struggling with your line type scale, let me know because we're going to start noticing it when we go to print if things are coming in. So that was another thing looking at Michelle's. Right here, this is not how she wants it to be. So it might be okay even in here. Let's see if we regen. So I typed REGEN, and that brought up her line dashing. But did it fix it in here? No, it did not. So what that means is I can come in here and try and type regen, or I check my paper space LT scale. So I'm at PSL LT scale, and we want that to be 0. And we're going to try it out here without that open. PSLT scale 0. Okay. And then I'm going to try and double click in regen. There we go. So if it's not showing up in your paper space, I'll type this in your Word document too, and you can watch me type it this time. So if it's not showing up, you're dashing in paper space. This is after you've corrected it to be in model space so that we have it's set to 1 and then everything's changed under the actual line type scale. So in paper space for dashing, we want PSLT scale equals 0. And then we'll say type this while double clicked into the viewport, then regen. Okay. All right. So that would fix her whole final thing. She's got the dashing right. She's got the colors right. She's okay. Let's look back at our homework. So floor plan. All add labels to reference details on separate architectural sheets, and then fill in all the info in the bottom right. People in space planning add labels that reference elevations on separate sheets, kitchen, bath, and other. So that means must have your elevation symbols, like any of those A, B, C's, any details, anything you draw. If you have 5 details, you need to have 5 referencing symbols, which were those little things I said I gave you copies of in Michelle's homework, kind of little things off in the distance that came in with this big block. We had these elevation markers and detail symbols here. This one's actually a section. So that showed the cut through of the cabinetry, and this one's going to be detailing out. You saw it on mine. It goes to my fireplace. It's this one, the molding on the fireplace mantle. So here's my fireplace, and the top of that fireplace mantle is somewhere in this location. So I use this to signify a detail. I also use that out here on my porch because I'm showing the detail of this stair. I had done some special things to like the balustrade of that stair and the stair steps themselves with the treads. So it gets a detail marker. And if it's my 4th detail on my sheet, it's 4 on sheet A5, it should match up with this, 4 on sheet A5. So I can find it by looking at my floor plan. So the little symbols go on your floor plan. And you have to have them wherever you're signifying a detail. If you detail out a window seat here, you just copy this and label it. And the labeling depends on what order it goes on the sheet. So I can show you all of that. Does Professor King cover those symbols in her class at all? Like you probably got it in a packet, but maybe you didn't understand how it goes together. We're going to figure it out, right? So the rest of the homework is pretty much like label the stuff, fill in all the info in the sheet for the furniture plan, fill in all the info for the sheet in the bottom right, add a legend. So anything with a legend needs a legend too, and it's got to be scaled to fit. But if we're coming into our, let's say I go back to Michelle's and we've started this one, we know that for Michelle. I'm going to undo that because that's the size. And we want it to be 1/2. And there it's fit. I'm going to double click out. So she has to fit the space that she has and the legend to tell me what these symbols are. It could be above or to this side. I like it to the side. So usually like I'll center this in my page. That's what I mean with alignments. Like don't do weird things. Like don't throw this up here and just put something over here. Try to be thinking about how it looks on the page. So your alignment's on point. That's my way of saying everything's laid out well. We need to have our little legend. Well, the legend doesn't fall right here, so we need a second viewport. So if we type view ports, enter, and then click single OK, we can come up here and create a space for our legend. Then when I double click in here, if I come in here and I find the one that goes with this, let's see, yeah, that's the one. And this room doesn't have the fan, but that's okay. We can select it down a little bit. Okay, so we get that in there. So hard to see because it's that really light thing. So at this point, I could probably change her text of her legend and say, I can't read it when I'm in here and I want to be able to. So I'm just going to change the color so that I can read it now on my sheet. And for this space, I don't have the fan, so I'm going to double click out of here and I'm just going to come up a little bit higher. And even under here, we have the remainder of the pendants that are being shown, I believe, and then everything else, like a can light, a switch and outlet, and so forth. So we could keep that in there, but it just makes sense if we're not showing it to have them kind of cropped out. You could maybe, if you're showing a lot of things you shouldn't be, reorder them by space so it's easier to crop them out. And you're like, this is a lot of after work, but I would have been showing you this last week, so it would have helped some. But I also want to tell you what I've told a few people. After this week, you're just organizing your project. There's not anything really new added homework. We use all the remaining sessions to fix and order these things as we need them to be. So we'll get to, like, if you've got to reorder some of this stuff, we can do that. I might think about like extending the deadline for this and just like using these weeks as explanatory. Let me look at this. I'm going to save this because it's pretty good. Okay, so LPC plan, we've got 2. We're starting to build it out, and we know that it has to end up looking like mine does with its little mechanical legend. A clean finished product of an LPC plan looks like this. The legend that goes with it, the item, those things in nice alignment, this filled in. We're going to have 2 of them because we have 2 areas, a bedroom and bath and a kitchen and a dining room. They both need to have their legends and be kind of centered at the middle of the page and in alignment with each other. So if that's finished there, our RCP plan, it's all figured out on the bottom, floor plan. That pretty much covers all the things with exception of drawing the details. Now the details are the most complex page because we're fitting so many at once. But it's only because we have so many multiple viewports, and I'm going to streamline the way you create the viewports because I know you're not all great at keyboard commands. So if we come in here, we say, okay, I finished this one. I can finish this information later. I'm going to create now for her. We've got to make a new copy. So I'm going to right click and move her copy, create a copy, and I'm going to say after floor plan, so it's at the end. So this is going to be my details. And she doesn't have any started, but after she does, so she's been working really hard, and here they are, Control C. She worked really hard all night, and here they are up here. So if I come in here and I say, okay, here's some of my secret hidden stuff over here. I've got all these things, but I don't want to have them unorganized like this. And sure, you could organize them into your drawing, but you're going to find out that when you make this guy, we want all the labels to be the same size, okay? So you'll notice on mine, when I go into detail drawings, this label is the same size as this label is the same size as this label, right? And so that means that I couldn't have scaled this bigger and had that stay the same. So they get their own viewports. So when I come in here, if I come in here and I say, I want this to be 3/4 inch, then it makes that label one size. Well, if I take this and I copy it, because you can just do a quick copy of a viewport, bam, now you're all excited. So, and then I come into my viewport and I find my mantle with its label and I say, well, this has to be 1 1/2. 1 1/2. Well, now this label is huge and this one's little. So you can see why the labels can't be controlled by the measurement of the object. So I take my mantle portion that I want to keep, which would be these things, the labeling parts and then the where I had drawn it out, because I had two fun versions of it. And I could line it up. I want it to be in kind of alignment with this, and it's about like this. So you're creating line sights and saying, okay, how can I arrange these things so that they're mostly lined up with each other like that a little bit more. Okay, so they're lined up. Then I have to create a second viewport for this label. So if I take this and I copy it and I go underneath here and I come in here, I find the text part of my label. And this might be what I was talking about, like the label. Let's see, if I said 3/8. Oh, that seems small to me. Let's look. Says 1/2. Because if not, I can just make a decision tonight about what we want our label to be. All right, well, let's find one. As long as it's consistent and you can read it. 3/8 is too small. So let's try 1/2. Let's try, what's that one? 3/4? 3/4 is actually pretty good. It could be a little bit bigger, but it's not that bad. So if we come in and we isolate this guy and we move him to be up here in alignment with this under the guy that it goes with, I think that's pretty good. So you could almost even leave this one and have it moved and then create another box for this, but all the labeling needs to be consistently the same size. And we do that by creating a second box and zooming it in and placing it under the last object. So you have the notes for what's a standard size of cabinetry. It's 3/4. This is about 1 1/2. You can ask about other things. You saw stairs were still 3/4. Some of it's you estimating it. It's never a random decimal. So within reason, but those are the most common sizes. All right, so that's the most difficult page, and you can lay it out as you want. Some of you might have too many details, and so all that you're going to do is create more pages. If you need more pages to add them, you add them, but they become A's. There's different labels. So now I can talk a little bit more about how do we label this, the 0, 0 in the corner, and how do we understand how to label these things here, okay? So the order of these things is totally up to you. I decided this was going to be my first detail and this was going to be my second detail. If I want to be the first one, it must be first on the page like we read. So like a grid, I'd go left to right and then down. So left to right, next row, left to right, next row. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're watching my cursor move. So here's 1, A5. And A5 is my architectural sheet. I get A5 because when I look at my plans here, I have S1 for my site plan. S stands for site and is the common letter that goes with site plan. So that's what you'll label yours, S1 for that sheet. For my floor plan, it's an architectural plan. So it's the first of my A's, and this is why I'm labeling it. So I have it going this way. If you want to reorder it, people who are in space planning, what matters is architectural sheets are A's. Then you can order it however you want. If you want your details to be A1 and come before your floor plan, you could. It usually makes more sense that your floor plan comes first so they get a walkthrough of the house. And then you say, oh, if this is the big house, what are these little things? And then you could have your details after that if you wanted. But site plan, because we start on the outside. Floor plan, it's architectural, so it's A. Our furniture plan is also architectural. It could be F for some small design firms, but usually we just treat it as another A because we're keeping our floor plan on. Ignore my symbols here and just pay attention to my numbers. So it's an A2. And then our ceiling plan is also architectural. It's telling me something about how the house is built. So it's A3, you're getting it. Basically, so far, the only deviance is site plan, S1. E. E stands for electrical. So for our LPC plan, we have E1. And we have a second one, so we have E2. For my section drawing, I have A4 because it's architectural. It's showing me a cut through of my architecture. For my detail drawings, I have A5 because it's the last of the architectural drawings. All right, so that's why they're ordered that way. Again, I could have this first, but if it's first, then I have to make sure everything after it is numbered appropriately because I use this to reference back to my plan. So now that you see why they're S1, A's, E's for electrical, maybe an F for furniture. If you prefer that over A, you may do that. It just depends on the company. You can now see why we refer to these. So if I place this as 1 and I label it as number 1 on sheet A5, when I go back to my my floor plan, which is where the little symbols are going to be, they must be on your floor plan. And it says that in your notes under the homework. I need to be able to look at this, and this lines up with how it's numbered on that sheet. So I go, oh, the fireplace. Well, I'd need to flip to sheet A5, and it should be the second drawing on A5. So if I had a physical printed sheet, these would be in order. I'd get past A1, A2, I get to A5, and I go, oh, here is the second physical thing on A5. And it would all work out for me up here. Okay, so I'm like 1, 2, da, da, da. All right. Aha. So here's the second one on A5. Now here, it's not lining up, so I've got to come in here and say, if this is 2 in here, hers, it's 2 on A5. And I want to make sure I'm kind of moving around. So these are things to look for. These are like student mistakes. The same thing that I'm doing right now. We said 3/4. Lock it up, man. Unless you're working in it at the end, lock it up so you don't keep scrolling and messing it because you get points counted off if you do. And here it's 3/4. I'm going to lock it up. And here it's 1 1/2. I can lock that up. And it correlates to my plan. So now if these are detail drawings and I'm Michelle, I go back here and I grab my detail markers from over here that I gave you already. That's the circle without the triangle. And I can copy it with both arms or one arm. I just drew them. And I copied over. And for her, because hers matches mine, here's one of them. It's showing me the fireplace. And it's the second one on A5. This is editable text. So if it's the first one, you do 1 on A5. But you also need to be thinking about, this is the first, yeah, I'm not going to confuse you. That's a whole nother thing that Heather brought up. Okay, yep, it's the second thing on A5. I'm going to keep it simple tonight, and I can explain something later in the next couple of days. So does that make sense? You've probably, you're starting to understand how you'd flip through a sheet set and understand how you're getting to the certain symbols based off the plan. So your note guy needs to go on your floor plan. There's a lot going on in your floor plan right now when you turn the furniture on. So these guys should probably get their own labels. I would put them on as architectural labels layer, and then you can control their on and off. Now let's talk about controlling the furniture plan. So if I'm Michelle and I have a furniture plan, or I don't, I need to create one. So any plans that don't line up with your homework, then you need to create a new title blocked page to have. So we'll do site plan share, why not? Okay. So if I come in here, and right now they're all out of order, and we can, I'll show you in a second, drag these tabs wherever we want. So furniture plan. For my furniture plan, you're like, well, I have all this junk stacked on top of each other. Exactly. We're going to learn how to control our layers, and it should be really nice. So we just set it to a 1/4 inch. I'm going to lock that up because it's at a 1/4 inch. Come in and get rid of any junk that I don't want. This is her floor plan, so it's the one we're modeling after. And then in here, I can turn off things that I don't need to get back to the furniture plan. So I'm going to turn off my lighting and electrical, and that got her pretty much all the way there, right? So that should be how it works out. It should be really simple. But now we see that,
Can I ask a quick question, please?
yeah. Who is it?
So one thing, it's Michelle.
Oh, okay.
One thing I got confused about and just like submitted my assignment anyways yesterday was when we brought in the stuff from SketchUp, the images from SketchUp into our CAD for this week's assignment, and we had furniture on the furniture plan. What were we supposed to do with like everything else that was underneath it? Like what we're seeing, for instance, on what you're showing on the screen, because this is like an older file. Did that make any sense?
No. So like the rug and
Maybe,
stuff?
yeah, like when we brought all that in. So
You
what
can
I
keep that
thought,
on for like all the
yeah,
details, you mean? Like your lamps, your rugs, your,
yeah.
yep, you keep all of that on.
So like basically, if you were to look, and you'll probably see, and I hope I didn't do this wrong, but
Yeah.
like basically, if you were to
Here,
like look at
mine.
my master bedroom, there'll be like the detailed one, which is on, I think, furniture, and then there'll
Mhm.
be one that's like the original master bedroom, and they're two different
Like the
layers.
blocks. The original master bedroom where you just drew squares, like your bed.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
So just,
Yeah.
yeah, turn off your basic. We're now on, so yours should look pretty like, this is my SketchUp version. It's got the beautiful blanket and
Yeah.
yeah. So this is what you will see minus any of this crud that I don't want. So I got to turn off my switching lines. And
Mm-hmm.
once I turn off all my electrical, this should be what I see for a furniture plan. So it should have the furniture and the kitchen and anything that's going to stay clean like this. And then people who are in space planning, your little labels like S1 for whatever, chair, C1, with the legend to the side. I do see that mistake made a lot where, because I don't show it in my class because I don't have to, they omit it. You have to have any legends to go with it on your final sheet. So you should have your furniture legend here, or you should have a note that says see booklet if you have it in a specification sheet that's outside of your document. And that's where you could use the general notes here too. You could say all furniture references are blah, 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 or you could have your legend for your furniture over here. So this is what it looks like. It should be as simple as we just turn off our labels. Ooh, guys, I know what it is. I know what it is. I just didn't include it. Okay, I'm fine with it. We'll save ourselves work. So we've got this done. So this is a furniture plan. Then for our floor plan, it should end up looking like this. We turn off the furniture. We only keep the items that if we're going to move out of our house, we're not taking with us, okay? No chairs should even be on. So these guys, I don't know what they're doing hanging out here. They should be gone, my stools. And then anything that would keep. And then your labels and the names of your rooms. So if it's dining room, kitchen, etc., etc., those would show up on your floor plan. Let's go to this. You should already have it set up that way, but I'm just going to be really clear. So it says, people in Space Planning, add the labels that reference elevations. All add labels that reference the details in architectural sheets. So it should be reference elevations on a separate sheet, kitchen and bath. Oh, that's right. So people in space planning, you should have detail sheets, but you also need to make sheets for everything you've done for her class, because that's how you submit it to her. So you should have an elevation sheets page, and that's architectural. That's an A sheet as well. So reference elevations on separate sheet. And this stuff can get kind of resolved. Like if I extend the deadline, we can talk more about it, but you're not asking any questions. So if my crazy is crazy, no one's saying anything except for Michelle, and she's not in space planning. So add these, and we said, make sure you have room labels and furniture legend. And these people, it says all, we'll say add room labels. If you don't have them on, you have them, they might be turned off. Room labels, and these people have to have furniture legend. This says add labels that reference elevations on separate sheet. So I'm just saying, if we go back in here to our model and you had an elevation of your kitchen where you showed me that, well, what does an elevation symbol look like? It looks like this same thing, copied, and then it says one big letter, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G in the middle, okay? This is elevation of my kitchen, A. And then I would have the elevation, and then I would have this symbol with the line coming off, and it would say 1 on sheet A6 to go with the elevation of my kitchen. We don't have elevations in my non-space planning class, so you have to remember that you should do this. You should add elevation symbol wherever you have an elevation and create a sheet that you put your layouts of your elevations onto. It's just not required this week. So I can make a new homework assignment next week where it's like tying up loose ends and we get into making the actual elevation sheet. You don't have to make that for me, but you do have to put the labels on this floor plan because it exists already. So you just put like A, B, C, D, all of your elevations. That way we're ready to make a sheet for it in the future for my space planning people. My people don't have any elevations. Okay, so we've got lots more details. I can go right now and I'm going to copy the extra stuff for detail drawings that I put in my notes. Well, actually, this goes under sheets. Let's put it at the top so you really see it, because it's how to set up a sheet. Number 1, delete duplicate box. Number 2, delete all text except date and scale, or delete it if you want to match fonts. Number 3, use annotative or non-annotative text to fill it. And those are the sizes for the relative text that you could use. And then these are each of the individual plans and what you need to do. Okay. So I wanted to show you one more thing. Save. like how it goes together. I think already this is like set up really simply to help you understand how the sheets reference each other, but like what does that look like in the real world when we're working? Okay, so these belong to, they're not mine, although I have a lot of them, but this was just a friend of mine she's like, yeah, I got those lying around. Danielle, she was a graduate, and she went on to work with me at the local business, Office Interiors, but these were when she left our 2-year program and went to complete her 4-year degree at another college. So this is what your 4-year degree could look like somewhere else, right? Because we've got to learn to do these things. So we're doing real simple. Then this is like for a whole project, organizing symbols. Now this school made her start with hand drafting your project, and then you've got your like little labels here where it says 2A3. So if I find A3, I can find references for things, and then 3A3 where she's hand drafted it in. Here she's hand drawn some of these things, so plumbing line, toe kick, sillstone, all of these details. A4 date, and it continues on. Well, then later they had her take the same project and then turn it into a digital format copy of it. And you can follow her notes. So it's number 1 on A6. It's at scale 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot, the base plan of the jewelry store. And then over here she has 2 on A6 because this is the second drawing on A6, and it's the wall section with backing. So sometimes you have whole plans that are represented with these symbols, and so she put the symbol on here to say this whole plan is this thing, but the labeling always goes with the object, so on and so forth. So here we have her cash wrap. So here's 2 on A8, here's 3 on A8, and that's the little part, the countertop where you can buy things at her jewelry store. Here she has her symbol legend to go with anything that you don't understand for that sheet. Over here is her communication plan. So this is like a final sheet set. You have A10, A9, A8, A7, and the things correlate with each other, sometimes on the same sheet. Now this is something we're not creating this week, but we will next. This is our cover sheet, and the cover sheet, we order all the sheets. So we put A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and we tell them how to get to them. Then we bind them all together by like clipping them together, and you could flip through them. And then if I got to A2 and saw a symbol that said, reference this on sheet A8, I could flip to A8. All right, let me see the other set. Here's jewelry store, and here's, oh yeah, this was the other one. I think this has the more obvious, like here's 2 on A6. So this is more of like what we're doing. 2 on A6 shows me an elevation of my bathroom. So if I go to A6, I caught some of her mistakes before. She was like, really? 2 on A6, and maybe it's just my eyes, is saying it's her cash wrap. So that's here. Let's zoom in, Control++. Maybe that's right. It's really hard to read. Yep, that was 3A6. So here's her cash wrap. But that's how we find those things. And you can see that's her section symbol, and she's showing a section of her cash wrap. So I hope it makes sense to you how we move through our sheets. It's usually a little difficult to get used to. I don't think I'm missing anything. I think adding those notes tonight will help. Do you have any questions? All right. I will release you then. You're released. Just